Welcome to Film Majors. I'm your host, William Stewart with the Hoosier Network, and this is a show breaking down film of Indiana sports or some of the biggest collegiate games in the country at the time, and we learn why the game went the way it did. Now, I promised myself I would stay away from this, but after Sunday afternoon, we're going to be reviewing Indiana men's basketball against Maryland to try and dissect that game and specifically that ending. Roll it! Indiana men's basketball, an unbelievable 79-78 loss at home to Maryland. And before we get into the final chaotic 18 seconds, let's set the scene. Indiana goes down by 5. They got 5.5 minutes to go. They execute great half-court defense. Miles Rice and Malik Renew, they get isolated shots, and they make them, like great players are supposed to do. Of course, Anthony Leal, Mr. Bloomington, shows up for the biggest and ones of the game after executing a perfect three-man weave. But after a few bad misses, the costly turnover, and then tough makes from Maryland, it's 78-76 Hoosiers with 18 seconds to go. Maryland's got the ball, far sideline on the inbound. Now, first to mention, IU has a foul to give. Maryland's going to look to get their ball to their best player, Gillespie. He's their point guard. He's been playing great all season. He's statistically their best player. He drives on Galloway, gets 3 Indiana man defenders to collapse. Now, this is important because of what their actual play ends up being. They're taking time off the clock. Gillespie kicks it out to his forward, who sets a great pick and ties up both Ballo and Rice to get Rodney Rice an open 3. He ends up hitting it the leaner. It's a tough shot, but that is Maryland's best three-point shooter on the day. He's not their best on the season, but he's the hot hand for Maryland. You should be guarding him no matter what. That should be a switch on the screen, anything else. Let's go back to when the chaos starts to ensue. Miles Rice takes his ball down court. He could really realistically drive this and just hope there's no buzzer beater for Maryland, but Indiana calls the timeout, like also a good idea. But Woody and his assistant coach getting into it because there was confusion. You see Ballo and Leal up here. They're not in the game. Your toughest playmaker in Ballo, who's the All-American $2 million center, who's going to score 2 points, whether you like it or not, when you're down 1, is on the bench with Anthony Leal, who's made tough shot after tough shot at the end of this game. I'm not sure what the personnel question there is, or the personnel decision there is, but let's go back to the actual play. You got Rice and Renew trying to set a down screen, or Renew trying to set a down screen for Rice to eventually wrap around and crash and hopefully have a one-on-one look. But Maryland's in a 3-2 zone. They've got one man down here and the other in the corner, guarding both of them as it looks like a man look. But it's not, because you see the center rolled over, or the center man in the 2. He's playing over top the inbound man here, but also trying to collect the roll if Renew ends up rolling. None of that happens. We know this because Renew just gets the ball, posts up, and takes a turnaround jumper, which who knows why. But Indiana ends up having this situation 4 more times this game. And you can see Renew and Rice end up going at it after the buzzer beater, which is not a great look for your program. But as we're going to see here, Indiana ends up at the exact same situation. This is much earlier in the game, so there's much less pressure. But you see Ballo is Renew in the situation. You've got Carlisle is the ball, going to get the ball. He's supposed to be Rice. It's actually still Galloway inbounding it here. Down screen comes from, or Ballo ends up getting the ball, ends up setting kind of a ball screen, and then does set a screen for Galloway. Galloway ends up to drive and tries to lob it to Renew, can't get the lob to go, but still, that ended up being points because Renew at the free throws. It's the same thing, but this time Galloway just keeps it. Here's another look at it. It's the same. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, all in the perimeter. The inbound man ends up running up to here, which is Rice. Obviously, it's in the exact same look, but it's the exact same inbound spot. The alternative is if, say, it's Trey Galloway is on the baseline still inbounding it. He tries to inbound it all the way up here to Rice, which could happen if you have a guy like Rice who can jump out of the gym and grab this ball. And we'll just watch the rest of this play out. Say he drives, watch the clock. There's 6 seconds on the shot clock as he starts to drive. And when Indiana had this, they had 5 seconds on the clock total. So Rice drives, immediately kicks it, and since it's a panic, Galloway attracted 2 to 3 defenders from Maryland, leaving a shooter wide open in the corner. And notice the clock here. There's still about 3 seconds on the clock. Therefore, Indiana could have just ran this again and had an open shot for the game. And in this one, Goody ends up hitting it like he does in the corner. And they have another look at it where it's Rice drives, ends up getting fouled. He got the line and had points. So Indiana had that look 4 times this game. All of them led to points. I'm not sure what happened and why that went out the window, but they could have done a lot of things differently. I'm going to go back, and we're going to go to the original spot. What also could have been done totally differently. Indiana has run this before. It's a common play in basketball, not just college ball. Say you've got Ballo in the, say even you run it with these 4. Say you run an elevator. Say you've got Rice over on this block set up. You have Goody here, and you have Renew here in these circles. So move Goody here, Renew's here, Rice starts over here. Now you've still got your 3. Say you run an elevator screen. Rice comes over, cuts up, and catches it up top like we saw on the one play where he ends up kicking it out to Goody with 5 seconds on the shot clock. You're able to have Rice up here with the ball, 2 guys screening. This is Renew here in this circle. He screens here. Goody gets into the corner, so you still got that corner look, and Indiana could have had another open shot, and you still have the option with Rice driving. Did any of that happen? No. Could that have happened? Sure. Another thing is Tony Adrange on Twitter, your coach Adrange, I'm sure you've seen it. He said that Indiana scoring on that play that they decided to run is the 21st percentile in the country, scoring .77 points per possession. If you're not familiar with percentiles, you don't want to be in the bottom percentile. It doesn't mean you're elite. That means you're very bad if you're at the bottom. You want to be in the 100th percentile because you're 100% better than everybody. Indiana's in the 21st percentile. Why that play was the one called, I couldn't even give you a guess. I'm not in the huddle. I'm not a coach. But end all be all, Indiana loses the game. Rice takes a bad shot. He held himself accountable. Woody said he takes accountability for it, but said some miscommunication happened and some things don't stick in the brain as they're supposed to, which pressure happens. So how Indiana responds from this is a different story when they have to play on Friday at Purdue. Let's go into the rest of the film when Indiana did actually play well. Because this whole game, they really did play well. I was quite impressed with the Hoosiers today. Or on Sunday, I should say, excuse me. The first thing was their effort. You can see on this defensive play, guys are switching. Baco's able to get through on a screen. Ballo's able to drop in coverage, still helping. Guys are energetic. Granted, this is the literal first defensive possession of the game, but this type of energy should be constant. Ends up forcing a tough shot at the end of the shot clock. Rebound, run in transition. Everybody's running. Great entry pass into Ballo. He's one-on-one. He's one of the best interior scorers in the country. I don't know why you wouldn't use him at the end of the game, but who knows? Again, Indiana in transition. Find your other great scorer inside the post. Malik Renew, able to get his first bucket back after the 6 games of injury. Indiana was working very well in the post. They were shooting 45% in the first half. A great screen there from Rice, able to dump it down to Ballo, which leads to a play like this. Galloway going to drive, but now you see the centers worried about Ballo. He's boxing him out instead of playing help on Galloway. Leads to the easy finger roll lay-in for Galloway. End up getting a bucket for Indiana. The offense was rolling very, very well. And here, back to the effort thing. And Baco playing off an offensive rebound, fighting for another bucket. And here's Gallo playing the inside-out game. Galloway gets an open 3. He misses, but who is it again? Mbako with effort. This has not been a commonplace for the Hoosiers. They haven't had enough really effort all season. It's been consistently inconsistent, as my good friend Zach Browning said before this game played. And funnily enough, it ended up kind of being the truth. Now, back to Mbako having really a great day at 16 points, able to capitalize off the Northwestern game, able to create off of a screen from Ballo, hits the and one, and Mbako really had a great day at 16 points. Galloway again on the drive off of a screenplay. The pick and roll game was working really well for Indiana. Go back and look at this again. Goody sets a great screen here coming out. Galloway able to get around. Even with the help that Maryland had, they're still too worried about Ballo. If you look at it right here, this help man should be coming up to play on Gallo, right? Tight coverage, you don't want him to get a good look, which is what Gallo ended up getting because he's still worried about Ballo in the post with a one-on-one matchup. Gallo ended up getting the floater, and there you go. Now back to Ballo and how much focus he had in this game. Miles Rice is shooting great at this point in the half. He's hit a couple threes. We're 12 minutes into the game, 8 minutes to go. But still, whoever's guarding Rice is playing a couple feet away from Ballo, which gives Rice a wide open look from three. He's able to draw 2 to 3 defenders. High-low game working really well for the Hoosiers because there's so much focus on that post game. Now, Indiana, what didn't go so well was the defensive end with the three-pointers, which we saw. Maryland was able to shoot that three, but it started really early in the game. They ended up shooting 50% from three in the game. They were shooting 40% in the first half. It's not good at all. You don't want somebody shooting 50% from three, but when guys are hitting shots, they're hot, they're hitting shots. What can you really do? But still, Indiana had their consistently inconsistent issues, such as this play here. Nobody able to help. You leave Carlisle on an island here. Ends up getting screened. Ballo's playing the role, but he sinks down a little too much. Gives up an open three to the Maryland shot. 3-ball. Same thing happens again. It's inconsistent. Goody able to recover, and then Ballo has to end up fouling because he gets beat inside in positioning. Again, with the inconsistent screenplay, it's nobody hedges there for Galloway. They force Ballo to step up, which Ballo ends up leaving his man wide open. There's the easy two. Between those two plays, it was one play where Goody he's giving effort. The screen gets hedged by Galloway very nicely, and Goody's able to recover, but Ballo gets beat inside because he's focused on the ball, ends up having a foul, sends that guy to the line. And it's just there's no consistency. Gallo fights through the screen again, but then there's no help from Goody. And there you go. Ballo's got to give up that open dunk because he had to help on the guard. And earlier in the game, Indiana just nobody getting back. The effort thing, another issue for the Hoosiers. Wide open dunk. There's 2 more points to extend a Maryland lead early in the first half. Now here's another one. It's just more miscommunication, and it's like they're almost lost out there. It's confusing to me. It's a 2-man game, Leal and Ballo, but they don't continue it. They just let the guy roll. So instead of Mbako picking it up, he looked like he was actually going to go pick it up, but he didn't. Renew ends up stepping up from the opposite block on the help line. Mbako just kind of stands in empty space. Wide open dunk. And that's the end of the film for us. But Indiana overall, it was one of their better games of the season. The problem is they didn't play totally perfectly. But back to the positives. Renew has some of his rhythm back. The shooting came around majorly in the second half. He had great action on ball screens, which were leading the scorers for the Hoosiers. They were just major mistakes at the worst times. There was the turnover, the bad missed shot at the end of the game, but there was other bad missed shots before then. And then there's what we just saw on the defensive end, guys just being lost. Like I was trying to say earlier, Indiana played a great 38 minutes of basketball. Unfortunately, you need to play a great 40 minutes of basketball to continue to win. Now, Indiana plays at number 10 Purdue on Friday, with 3 more road games to follow, 2 of them being ranked. It's going to be an interesting next few weeks for the Hoosiers to see how they respond. But that's all for this week of Film Majors. I'm William Stewart, and thank you for joining me. Till next week, have a great week, and God bless.